Drive down almost any highway. It won't be long before you come across trucks hauling food, vehicles, construction materials, or shipping containers. After all, these are some of the most common loads transported every day. But every once in a while, the road becomes the stage for a strange and extremely rare haul, one that, in some cases, happens only once in history. And operations like these tend to draw huge crowds. That's because you don't see a truck carrying an entire space shuttle, a massive component from a scientific experiment, or a piece of equipment worth around $10 billion every day. These operations require specialized vehicles, months of planning, and even modifications to roads and bridges. In some cases, crews have to remove trees just so the load can travel a few miles. And if you've never been lucky enough to see one of these loads on the road, don't worry. In today's unbelievable video, we're taking a look at 10 of the strangest loads ever hauled by truck. If you were standing by the road and saw this truck pass in front of you, what would you say it was carrying? Some people might guess it was part of a Ferris wheel, a power-generating turbine, or even a rocket component. What almost no one would guess is that this structure is a giant electromagnet used in scientific experiment. But that is exactly what is sitting on the trailer. The ring is about 50 feet in diameter, weighs approximately 37,000 pounds, and is part of the muon G2 experiment, which studies subatomic particles known as muons. In 2013, Fermilab, near Chicago, needed one of these magnets. Building a new one was possible, but it would have cost about 10 times more than transporting this electromagnet, which was sitting unused at a laboratory on Long Island. Looking at a map, the journey seemed straightforward. The two laboratories were only about 620 miles apart, but this was no ordinary load. Throughout the entire trip, the ring had to remain perfectly horizontal and could not warp by more than 3 millimeters. Otherwise, its superconducting coils could be permanently damaged. That is why engineers studied every turn, grade, and irregularity along the route. They quickly realized that although the highway route was shorter, it was not the best option. The electromagnet first left the laboratory in the middle of the night on a custom-built modular trailer. The convoy traveled at no more than 10 miles per hour and had to negotiate every turn with extreme care. A crane then transferred the load onto a barge, which traveled nearly 3,200 miles down the east coast, around Florida, and through a series of rivers before reaching Illinois. Near its destination, however, the team loaded the electromagnet back onto a trailer. For 3 nights in a row, the convoy moved through closed streets, passed beneath power lines, and performed carefully calculated maneuvers to keep the ring level. After 35 days, the load finally arrived at Fermilab at 4:07 in the morning. More than 3,000 people welcomed the electromagnet with what felt like a full-scale celebration. And while some objects still have much to contribute to science, others have already served their purpose and deserve to be preserved, even when doing so requires a massive logistical operation. That was the case with Endeavour, the space shuttle that completed 25 missions before NASA retired it from service in 2011. Its final destination was the California Science Center in Los Angeles, where it would go on public display. But before it could get there, Endeavour still had one final journey to make. In September 2012, it left Florida mounted on top of a modified Boeing 747, known as the Shuttle Carrier aircraft. During the flight, the plane carried Endeavour over some of California's most famous landmarks. But the most complicated part of the journey began after it landed. To reach the museum, the shuttle still had to travel 12 miles through the streets of Los Angeles. On a map, it might not seem like much, but you can't simply take any street where you are transporting a space shuttle that is 122 feet long, 78 feet wide, and weighs around 150,000 pounds. In addition to finding the right route, the team built a specialized, remotely controlled transporter supported by 160 wheels. But even that equipment could not be used for the entire journey. To cross an overpass spanning Interstate 405, Endeavour had to be transferred onto a lighter platform that could distribute its weight more evenly across the structure. And that was when one of the most unusual scenes of the entire journey took place. For roughly a quarter of a mile, a stock Toyota Tundra, with no special modifications, towed the space shuttle and its platform, which together weighed nearly 300,000 pounds. The team took 3 days to complete the route, while thousands of people watched the operation unfold. It's almost ironic to think that a spacecraft capable of traveling at 17,000 miles per hour took 3 days to cover just 12 miles. And just as it is difficult to transport something by land that was built to fly, putting something designed to cross the oceans undetected onto the road is no simple task either. After all, a submarine traveling on a trailer is nearly impossible to miss. This is U-17, a submarine that served in the German Navy from 1973 to 2010. After it was decommissioned, the submarine was donated to the Technik Museum Zinheim, but it was still in Kiel, more than 435 miles away. For the first part of the journey, U-17 traveled by water, passing through the Kiel Canal, the North Sea, and several rivers. But the part that matters for our video began when the submarine reached the roads of Germany. At nearly 165 feet long and weighing around 770,000 pounds, U-17 was loaded onto a 30-axle modular trailer. A MAN TGX prime mover pulled the load, while a second truck helped push from behind along certain sections of the route. The trailer's axles could also steer at sharp angles, allowing the convoy to negotiate tight turns. But the most impressive piece of machinery was installed between the trailer and the submarine. For this journey, engineers designed a special support frame that allowed U-17 to rotate up to 73 degrees around its longitudinal axis. Instead of dismantling sections of the hull, the crew could tilt the entire submarine to pass beneath bridges and clear other obstacles where it would not fit in its normal upright position. As you might expect, the sight of a submarine moving through city streets on a trailer drew thousands of people to the sidewalks. And since we're already in Europe, let's leave Germany behind for a moment and head to Sweden. That's where, in March 2026, one of the largest power transformers in the world began its journey. Hitachi Energy manufactured the unit at its facility in Ludvika. The transformer alone weighed nearly 1 million pounds, about as much as a fully loaded Boeing 747 at takeoff. The factory normally ships its products by rail and even has access to the largest specialized railcar in Europe. But this transformer was too large even for that. The team had to bring in the only suitable heavy-haul transport system available anywhere on the continent. To give you an idea of its size, it took 14 trucks just to transport the system's disassembled components to Sweden. Once assembled, the transporter had 38 axle lines, more than 300 wheels, and measured around 350 feet long. With the transformer loaded, the entire convoy weighed more than 900 metric tons, nearly 2 million pounds. The challenge was just as enormous as the load itself, and planning the move took more than a year. After leaving Ludvika, the convoy slowly made its way to Schirping, where the transformer began the maritime leg of its journey to China. Now let's look at a load that, on first glance, does not seem nearly as impressive as a space shuttle or a submarine. From a distance, it looks like nothing more than a large tube sitting on a trailer. But inside that structure was the James Webb Space Telescope, a spacecraft worth more than $10 billion. To move something so valuable, engineers designed a custom-built, sealed, climate-controlled container specifically to protect the telescope. In September 2021, the convoy left Northrop Grumman's facility in Redondo Beach and traveled 26 miles through the streets of Los Angeles to a naval facility in Seal Beach. The truck moved at just 5 miles per hour under police escort, and the team had a 6-hour window to complete the trip. Nothing could be left to chance. Every pothole along the route was mapped and repaired before the move, and some traffic lights had to be raised to give the container enough clearance. The James Webb was then loaded onto a ship and transported 5,800 miles to French Guiana. Only then was it taken to the launch site, where it would begin its journey into space. And just as no one could afford to lose a 10 billion piece of equipment, you cannot afford to waste your most valuable asset, your time. Today, YouTube is being flooded with channels created entirely by artificial intelligence, featuring shallow content, unverified information, and little real concern for the people watching. If you do not want to waste your time on videos like that, subscribe to Unbelievable. Here, real people handle every stage of the process. We research, fact-check, write, narrate, and edit every video with the care you deserve. And someone else who had no time to waste was Captain Chelsea Sully Sullenberger. On January 15, 2009, an Airbus A320 operating Flight 1549 lost both engines after striking a flock of geese. Without enough power to return to an airport, Sully made an emergency landing on the Hudson River and saved all 155 people aboard. But the story of that aircraft did not end in the water. After crews recovered the fuselage from the river, it spent nearly 2 years inside a hangar. Then, the Carolinas Aviation Museum decided to transport it to Charlotte, North Carolina. The wings were removed and shipped separately. The fuselage, which measured around 120 feet long, was loaded onto a flatbed trailer for a journey of nearly 600 miles. And because the aircraft was already famous across the country, the transport itself became another major event. Along the route, thousands of people gathered on roadsides and overpasses to get a closer look at the aircraft from the so-called Miracle on the Hudson. The wings were not reattached until more than a year after the fuselage arrived at the museum. Now let's return to Sweden to follow the relocation of an entire church. It stands in Kiruna, a city that is being moved because decades of mining have weakened the ground beneath part of the urban area. Among the buildings that had to be relocated was Kiruna Church, a wooden structure measuring around 131 feet wide and weighing nearly 740 tons. Instead of dismantling the building, the team decided to move the entire church in one piece. First, the crews lifted it a little over 4 feet off its foundation and placed it on a framework of steel beams. The entire structure was then loaded onto 2 computer-controlled, self-propelled modular transporters, or SPMTs, with a combined total of 224 wheels. The route to the new site was just over 3 miles long, but the operation took 2 days. The church moved at around 0.3 miles per hour, while sensors monitored every movement to ensure the structure did not tilt by more than 3 inches. More than 10,000 people gathered to watch the move, which was also broadcast on television using dozens of cameras positioned along the route. So far, we have seen objects that were incredibly expensive, extremely heavy, or almost unbelievably large. But when it comes to age, none of them can compete with the next load. In April 2021, Egypt had to transport 22 royal mummies, including 18 kings and 4 queens, into a new museum in Cairo. Among them was the mummy of Ramses II. The route was just over 3 miles long, but there was no room for improvisation. Each mummy was placed inside a nitrogen-filled capsule to prevent exposure to oxygen during the journey. The capsules were then secured inside vehicles equipped with special suspension systems designed to minimize vibrations as much as possible. Some of the streets along the route even had to be repaved to create a smoother ride, but the operation was treated as much more than a simple transport. The vehicles were designed to resemble the ceremonial funerary boats used in ancient Egypt, complete with gold details and pharaonic symbols. The mummies traveled in chronological order based on the dates of their reigns, while horse-drawn chariots, performers, and an orchestra accompanied the procession. The entire ceremony was broadcast around the world. Another transport operation that made headlines involved a massive boulder that would later become the centerpiece of Levitated Mass. Created by artist Michael Heiser, the installation was set to be displayed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, giving visitors the impression that the rock was floating above them. But first, the granite boulder had to be moved from a quarry in Riverside County to Los Angeles. The rock weighed around 340 tons and had to remain in one piece. Because no existing vehicle was capable of handling the job, engineers built a custom transporter nearly 300 feet long with 196 wheels and 44 axles. But taking the most direct route was not an option. To avoid overpasses, structurally vulnerable bridges, and heavily traveled streets, the convoy covered 105 miles, passed through 22 cities, and moved only at night at a maximum speed of 7 miles per hour. Along the way, trees had to be trimmed and other obstacles removed to clear the route. The journey took 11 nights, and at every stop, the boulder attracted local residents, camera crews, and reporters. And since it was about to become a work of art designed to attract attention, you could say the rock started doing its job before it was even installed. But don't assume that every transport operation on this list attracts the same level of media and public attention. Some take place far from any city, in some of the most remote regions on Earth. That is the case with the antennas at ALMA, an observatory made up of 66 antennas located in Chile's Atacama Desert, more than 16,000 feet above sea level. Each antenna weighs more than 110 tons and must be moved between different positions so the observatory can operate in multiple configurations. To handle the job, 2 purpose-built transporters were created, Otto and Lore. Each one measured around 66 feet long, 33 feet wide, and 20 feet tall. Even unloaded, each transporter weighs more than 140 tons, rides on 28 tires, and is powered by 2 700 horsepower engines. The transporters travel roughly 17 miles between the base facility and the high-altitude plateau. But at that elevation, the air is so thin that the engines lose nearly 1/3 of their power. And the altitude does not affect only the machines. Even the driver's seat is equipped with a holder for an oxygen tank. Despite carrying a massive antenna, Otto and Lore can position it on its mounting pad with accuracy measured in just a few millimeters. And if you enjoyed discovering some of the strangest and rarest loads ever transported, you'll definitely want to see the most dangerous loads traveling on our highways. Just click the video appearing on your screen, and I'll tell you all about them. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, I'll see you in the next unbelievable video.